I mean, what's fascinating about this report is it reveals actually a picture that I think we weren't familiar with. It's not about north-south divides, it's not about inner city versus suburban, it's actually the coastal regions, rural towns that are really suffering. The good news is that there seems to have been excellent impact on inner city areas, particularly to do with good schooling, good transport links, so there's hope. But it requires money. So I think the big question is going to be, are we going to see that kind of investment? And of course, the other aspect of it is about jobs.
Yeah, quite.
Hugely concentrated, not just in the southeast, but particularly in London. In some of these areas, like Somerset, for example, is that something that's realistic? Are we going to see jobs available in the near future?
Well, I mean, you'd think so with an area like that, because, of course, Hinkley Point nuclear power station's been built there. I mean, that's going to create thousands of jobs, surely, for the local economy.
I think that's the hope, but one of the biggest problems is that, A, there aren't high aspirations in many cases. This has a lot to do with teaching, not necessarily good schools in some areas, but also very bog-standard, not good enough transport links. I mean, really practical things that are having a big impact. So on the one hand, it's about aspirations, it's about knowing about opportunities. On the other hand, it's literally being able to get to them.
And this is the problem, though. I mean, London just dominates everything. I mean, for example, yesterday we had the industrial strategy, Greg Clark unveiling a big investment by Merck, the US drug giant, and it's all in London.
It is, and we've got to change that. And I think that the reality is that any kind of policy that is social policy is also economic policy. If we're trying to solve any of these social issues around aspiration, social mobility, we've got to look at the economy, and let's really recognise the economy isn't just something that affects those people in London. There's a whole other rest of the country out there.
Worth pointing out, though, contrary to popular belief, inequality in the UK as a whole is actually falling, isn't it?
It is, and I think that's one of the things that they're at pains to emphasise. There is a good news story in there. I mentioned inner city areas. I mean, that's a real success story. In many cases, there was very high levels of disadvantage. There still is, unfortunately, in other cases, but there's a real strong sense about social mobility improving. So there is definitely good change, but I think it's that there are forgotten areas, and I think that's one of the strongest things about this report. We now know where they are, now we can concentrate on them.
All right, Anastasia Duval from Civitas. Good to see you. Thanks for joining me.